What's up, guys? It's Zach back at it again with another video. Today we are going to be talking about the patch bay. And so dumb. Sounds like I need some coffee, so be right back. Okay. Now that we got some bean juice in our system, let's try this again. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about my patch bay. I bought it a little while ago, and we're just mostly going to talk about why I love it, why I got it, what does it do, how's it set up, and why should you get one or why should you not get one? Okay, so we're going to start with why I love it, which is also kind of tied to why I got one. Seems like you generally buy things that you love, right? But anyway, back in college, we had this gigantic rack setup, and it was awesome because you could plug anything into anything, and it was very versatile. It was really cool. You could configure any microphone with any of the preamps or compressors, or any of the outboard gear that we had, which was really cool. And there's something about like the tactile feel of switching knobs and doing that. Like, I don't know, it kind of put me in a different mentality of like, oh, we're actually doing this. It's not just moving buttons on a screen, which there's nothing wrong with plugins. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I'm all about saving money, buying what you need, and, having the essentials. You don't need to go out and you don't need a patch bay. You don't need to go out and buy a bunch of outboard gear. But for me, I knew I was going to want some outboard gear. I knew that I liked outboard gear. And I also like to process some of my signals before they hit Reaper. So I knew that getting a patch bay made sense. It was kind of an expandability option, which is part of why I got it as well. And part of why I got the one that has as many channels as this one does. And so that's something that you could think about, right? Like if you know that you're going to want outboard gear eventually, it's not a bad idea to invest in a patch bay. They're not insanely expensive. I think mine was $150. It's the Samson, what is it called? It's the Samson S Patch. It's a 48-point patch bay. And the reason why I got this one versus the Art, I don't remember what, P48 or something like that, is because this has the controls on the front, which is, to me, the whole reason why you get a patch bay is so you can take the outputs and inputs and things like that that are on the back of your gear, move them to the front with the patch bay, and then you can access all of that stuff. So now, if I want to plug in my bass, which I just have the DI from my bass going into the back of the Samson here, I can take that and then I can route it however I want. I could put that into my Art preamp here, which is not anything. It gives it a nice warm sound. It doesn't like drastically change it, but it gives it a nice warm sound. So if I know that I'm looking for that for my bass or for my microphone, then that's great. I can do that. Right now I am running the microphone from itself, obviously, into the XL compressor here, and then this is where it gets tricky, and this is where these videos can get long. This took so much trial and error. I legitimately spent like, I think 3 hours yesterday trying to get this configured how I wanted, because I knew I wanted to be able to plug something into the front of my interface, and then I wanted to be able to route that signal wherever I wanted. But I was having the hardest time figuring that out. And then I was in the shower, I was literally in the shower thoughts. I'm standing there, and then it's like a rock hit me in the head. And I was like, I could just use an insert cable because my interface happens to have inserts as an option. And then I can just use that as the input and output because it's a tip ring sleeve situation, or tip ring situation on the cord. And then I can use that to go wherever I want, because then when it comes back to the other port on the patch bay, it completes the loop. And that's essentially what you're doing, is you're creating an effects loop with this. So I know I've already gotten out in the weeds, and I'll try to wrap this up fairly quickly, but these are very cool. They can be they were confusing for me. Maybe I'm just stupid, I don't know. But it's something that I've just off the cuff was like, I haven't been able to find anything. It took a lot of trial and error for me. So I'm just going to make something, put it out there, and see if it sticks, see if people like it. So again, it is kind of relevant to your situation specifically. If your interface doesn't have inserts, then this method might not work for you. Probably won't work for you. But if it does have inserts, then this is how I have it set up. Okay, so back here we can see all of our inputs and outputs, things like that. They're pretty similar looking on the back as they are on the front. They just, of course, don't have the normalization switches. But over here we can see the different cords, things like that, and patch cables that we have. And then over here we have the tip ring cord, and this is an insert cable. And for the EIE, it has inserts. So if your audio interface doesn't have inserts, this probably won't work for you. But this is how it works for an interface with that, with the inserts. So we have the single cable going out of the insert for 1, because this correlates to channel 1. And then I have this going to the output and the input, as we can see here. And then on the front, I'm now able to put whatever I want and route this audio from channel 1 to wherever I want, or route audio to channel 1 from wherever I want. So this gives you a ton of flexibility having a patch bay. Again, you don't have to have one. We're going to talk about that later, but it definitely makes it way easier if you know you're going to be using outboard gear and having different routing options, because there's nothing more limiting in being creative than being limited by your physical options. So this makes it super easy. I can just plug something in, plug something out here, and it makes it super, super seamless to be able to continue my creative flow and not have to stop. So that's one of the reasons why I'm super excited to finally have another piece of outboard gear that I can use. It's a dual channel compressor. Why is that so hard to say? More bean juice. Oh, it touches your soul. So it's a dual channel compressor, which is cool, because that means that what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my condenser mic that is on my guitar amp behind me, and my SM57, and I think eventually I'm going to have like a summing mixer, basically just a mixer where I'm taking those two channels, adding them together, and then kind of having one channel coming off of that. So the sum of those two channels. And then have that go into the compressor, something like that. But I just wanted to have the versatility of having vocals go through this, or having guitars go through this. That's mostly what I'm going to be doing with it. Now let's talk about some reasons why you don't need a patch bay. You don't need one if you don't plan on having outboard gear. That's pretty much the biggest one. Because that's its whole purpose, is to be able to take, like I said, the outputs and inputs on the back of your stuff, move it to the front so you can, set it up one time instead of having to crawl around with a flashlight figuring out where things are at. As you can already see in some of the B-roll, it's not the most ideal way to show somebody that, but it is kind of cumbersome to unplug everything and then plug it all back in. So if you know that you're not if you know you're gonna have a simple setup, you know that you're not gonna be using outboard gear, you probably don't need one. I tried to set up having my guitar effects set up with it, but it doesn't work. It creates a ton of noise, like to the point where it is just unbearable. You cannot use it that way. At least in my experience. I could be wrong, but I could not figure out how to get it to work. So if you're thinking of doing that, which I think is a good idea, it just didn't seem to work for me. It seemed like when it gets to the amplification step, that's where all the noise comes in. Like I could get signal from my guitar and then go to my pedals, but then once I went from my pedals to the amp, it was just horrible noise. So without making this video too terribly long, which we're already probably almost there, I hope that this answers some of your questions. I know that when I first got the Patch Bay, I was mostly just excited to be able to mess around with it because I knew it was going to be kind of a time suck. And it definitely was. But it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun to mess around with it, figure out how it works, and figure out how you can make it work for you. Because sure, there's like the normal setup of it, but you know, there's a lot that you can do with it. Some people will just use it as a through, where it just, you know, it just everything is just straight across to everything. Because the way that I have it set up is how I explain it to you. I have my outputs on the top and then my inputs on the bottom, and if I just don't have anything plugged into the front, then it just plays like normal. So then if I didn't want to go through the compressor, which this is one of the big things that I wanted, is I wanted to be able to use my microphone without having to use the compressor. Because like for work, I don't want to have to always have my compressor running to run it as normal, which that's the setting on it. So if nothing's plugged into the front, it doesn't break that chain. So again, I hope that this video was helpful. I know that it kind of went a few different directions, but that's what happens when you're hit by inspiration. You just start going. So I hope this is helpful, guys. Check out the guide I'm going to toss down in the description below. And again, of course, if you have any questions, comments, let me know in the comments section. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.